So basically, these are historical fiction books. And let me say this right now, they're not textbooks. So it's not a book that you're going to find in school.
Okay.
They are historical fiction, but they are exactly the history of Haiti, but interjected in a humanistic way. So when I speak about the characters, it's their conversations, their personalities, their love stories, their family. So it's a very interesting book that you're being fantasized by a wonderful story, but in the context of actual history. The message is grand. Number one, Haiti, if you don't know its history, you will be totally amazed at how grand the history is. It's a very complicated history. It's a history that myself, before doing 10 years of research, I found out that I knew nothing of my own history. What I thought I knew, it was wrong. So I needed to bring this out for the general public, not only for Haitians, but for Americans to understand that this is a suppressed history that has to be told. I grew up in America. I went to American schools, and I was never taught what's in these books. And if you're a Haitian, you were also taught differently because you were taught from the French side of history. This gives it to you from the real side of history. You could jump into any which one, because in the beginning, I have about 3 pages explaining what was before it. But if you are a lover of history, and if you're a lover of a wonderful story, I would start with this one, which starts in 1771 and goes to 1793. And it basically is a love story between Jean and Marie, and during the slave uprising of 1791 at Bois Cayman. So this one takes us to 93, and then the last page, okay, ends as a cliffhanger. What's going to happen next?
Yeah.
And the first page begins where the day that this last one ended.
Okay.
So you go now jump into Toussaint Louverture. So this is the rise of Toussaint Louverture.
The greatest man.
The greatest man.
Haitian man.
You and I speak the same language. One of the greatest in the world.
Okay.
I'm going to elevate Toussaint, that you have to read this book to understand Toussaint.
Yeah.
And to understand Toussaint, you have to understand that he came from royalty. And that's a whole other story. So this is a great story of Toussaint Louverture and how he became the Governor General of the richest colony in the world. Then we have Toussaint Louverture goes to this book. So this continues with Toussaint.
Yes.
Okay, with the Haitian Civil War, La Guerre des Couteaux.
So it has to be about Dessalines now.
And now Dessalines, exactly. So it actually begins that Pétion was their enemy. So Pétion now is defending the city of Jacmel, and the army of Louverture with Christophe and Dessalines is trying to conquer the city of Jacmel. It begins there. It goes through the French invasion of 1802. It goes through the arrest of Toussaint, and of what I consider he was murdered by the French when they shipped him to France, and then the rise of Dessalines. And Dessalines is an incredible character. I think I do him so good justice here, because a lot of people see him as a brute, and he was a
most
strong.
of the time, the good thing that they say about Dessalines, he was one of the finest strategists.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing that was the brilliance of Dessalines is that he convinced his troops that if they died, they would go under the water and be reborn in Africa in paradise. So when these guys would get together and they're going into battle, and he would bring them for the pep talk.
Issue.
Yeah, exactly. When he would bring them for a pep talk, and he'd have all his guys, and he would say, "Paguez maman," and they would say, "Paguez maman, paguez papa." Si vous mourrez, vous avez.
Yes.
And right there, the guys would go crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
And they would run into battle, and that was the brilliance of Dessalines. Do you know that Jean-Jacques Dessalines never got injured in battle in the wars?
Oh, yeah. And
The first time a bullet hit Jean-Jacques Dessalines was his assassination.
Okay.
Then this book ends us on 1804, on New Year's Day, and this one begins on 1804, New Year's Day.
Yes.
Okay? And this is now trying to keep the peace. But what happened was that Jean-Jacques Dessalines got assassinated, and these two guys, Pétion and Christophe, yes, and Pétion and Christophe divided the country where Christophe became King Henry in the north, and he sided with the British, and Pétion became president of the Southern Republic. So we have the Northern Kingdom, Southern Republic. Now,
And I see you put this is their wives?
I'm glad that you brought this. This is Joute, which is Marie Lachenesse.
Okay.
This was the mistress of Pétion.
Okay.
And this is Marie-Louise David, which was the wife of Christophe. Now, to give you an idea, these two women were very strong women. This one here, Joute, she became the mistress to Jean-Pierre Boyer after Pétion died.
Okay.
So she was a woman that ruled with her men for 37 years in Haiti.
Okay.
They called her the president of two presidents.
You know, story didn't talk about them too much.
And you know, this is one of the suppressed historical elements of Haiti. Haiti is a matriarchal society, not a patriarchal society. You know how strong your mother was.
Yes.
I know how strong my mother, my aunts, okay? So imagine going back in history, this has always been Haiti's history. As an example, in 1802, okay, the army of Haiti that was fighting the French, 11% of them were women.
Okay.
So if you had 40,000 soldiers, over 4,000 were women. And not only were women, but were officers in the army, meaning that they commanded men. So the strength of the Haitian woman is basically from the Doheny tribe of Africa. And the Dohemis, they had run out of men.
Okay.
So they basically, the Amazonians, okay, became the warriors. And when they were captured, they were sold into slavery. And when they came to Saint-Domingue, they were in the plantations and they were still warriors.
Oh yeah, yeah.
As an example, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, his aunt Toya was a Dohemian Amazonian warrior.
Yeah.
His aunt Toya took him under her breast at 7 years old
Okay.
and taught him how to fight. And one of the reasons that he always credits his fighting power was his Aunt Toya.
Okay.
When his wife, okay, when he met his wife, the reason that he loved his wife and obeyed his wife was because she reminded him of his Aunt Toya. He loved strong women.
Okay. And about Sanity Belair.
I love Sanité Belair.
I heard you talking about her often.
Sanité Belair began her fighting career. She was about 12 years old.
Yeah.
And she was an incredible warrior. She was also an officer.
She was also part of the same tribe or descent.
No, she was born in Haiti, and the backstory behind her, I'm trying to remember if she was born into slavery or not.
No.
So I don't hold me on that. But she was in the army from a very early age, and she was a great warrior. She could fight like a man.
Yeah.
Okay. And so yeah, there's a lot of women that are in these books that you'll very much appreciate.
But you know, in the story, in the book story that the kids are studying in school in Haiti, they didn't present the woman like this.
Of course not.
They're not.
Of course, you have to remember that the entire world went through a situation where women were oppressed. Okay?
Yeah.
So when did the American woman finally be permitted into the battle scene? Was in 2010. These women were fighting in 1800.
Oh, okay.
Another thing that people don't understand is that they think that the Haitian army was a bunch of slaves running around with loincloths and this and that. Nothing could be further from the truth. As an example, in my book 3, I show the Haitian Army organization, and this took me a year to go through. But it gives you all of the regiments, okay? So the first one, who was the commander? Where were they located? What part of the country? What was the corps? Was it infantry, artillery, cavalry? How many people? 1,500 in this one. And who was the fort if they had commanded a fort? Now take a look at the organization that Dessalines had in his army. Okay, 40,000 soldiers organized. So the thing that gets me with history, that gets me so unnerved with history, is how they've put Haiti to a point that it was almost like a bunch of uncivilized people, and they rised up in this. No, not at all. It's contrary.
So you were educated here in the States.
Yes.
So how did you get involved in all that?
Great question.
Who gave you that?
Okay. Did you ever try to do a family tree?
Yeah.
I tried and I failed.
Okay.
It was a disaster. Okay. So I decided to concentrate on my father's father, his father, his father, his father.
Yeah.
And I was able to go back to the first
And leads you to
Bayard.
there.
Exactly. The first Bayard that came to Saint-Domingue at the time, which was the
So
precursor.
there's a
of
way
Haiti.
for you to find all that reference and
Yeah, I had to have a researcher help me out.
yeah.
Through the French archives. He was born in 1689, and he arrived in France as a very young man in 1710. And the way that he arrived in France was that he didn't have any money. So he signed a 3-year contract. So he was almost like a slave. He didn't get paid for 3 years, okay? And he had to work for the master until finally, after 3 years, he finished his contract and he could go to work for somebody else. And that's how I began the story. I wanted to find out, what were these people doing in the 1700s? What were they eating?
Yeah.
How were they living? And what I found out was astonishing, that Haiti was the most prosperous, the richest colony.
Yeah,
And
at
when
that
we say
time.
Haiti, we should say Saint-Domingue, right?
Yes,
Was the
it was
richest
the old
colony.
island.
Yeah, in the world. They consist 60% of all coffee that were being drank in the world came from from the soil. 50% of all sugar being consumed. They were leading exporters of cotton, indigo, cacao. They had a shipbuilding business.
That small country, that small
Manufacturing.
island.
Yeah, incredible. So more and more I got involved, and I started to understand. And when we say, well, why weren't we taught these things? Well, let me tell you why we weren't taught these things, okay? When the United States was telling their slaves that they were subhuman, that you were less than livestock. Well, how could you explain the richest colony in the world being run by a black man that was once a slave?
Yeah.
Hello, somebody. Okay? And this is why it had to be suppressed, because the American slaves at that time in 1800, okay, they were reminding people, hey, what about that Constitution? All men are created equal. Well, the slaves in Haiti were freed in 1794. So that's why this history was suppressed in a certain aspect.
So if you want to find out more, if you want to know more about our story in a good way, Daniel has these 4 books, and you can find them on Amazon. And can you tell?
Don't go to Amazon, go to triumphtotragedy.com. Just the way it's spelled. triumphtotragedy.com. It's better for the author, and it's better because you'll be enrolled in my newsletter where you'll get videos. Whereas if you buy from Amazon, I don't know you, so I can't send you these great videos, more history, etc., and people love them. So triumphtotragedy.com. Hope you get one.